Welcome to a new class of Python Accounting Automation. In this class, we're going to cover everything that you need to know about Python essentials for accountants. If you've seen my previous class, then in that class, I've shown you about most of the basics. But in this class, we're going to do a bit more of the practical part because I have prepared myself a mark sheet, let's say a spreadsheet, and I'm going to be using each and every one of those spreadsheets to do specific tasks. So if you still did not check my previous video, I would still suggest you that go and check out that video properly, and then it will help you a lot in this class and understand a lot better. But if you have no prior experience, it is also totally fine because I'm also going to break down everything that I do in this class, and I'm going to explain it to you how it works. So without any further ado, make sure not to skip any part of this class, and let's get on started with this class by opening up PyCharm on our device. First off, what you want to do is that I'm going to create a new project. Now here, let's just change the name. So I'm going to put in Python Essentials for Accountants. Let's wait for a bit until this opens up, and it's also going to create the virtual environment. So I'm just going to skip out all of these parts. So after everything opens up, we're just going to open it up in my Explorer. There we go. We have VENV and we have IDEA. Now there are a couple of things that we want to do. First off, we have 4 of these Excel files, and I'm going to use each and every one of them for each and every separate part of this class. So first things first, let's just create new directories. The first directory that I'm going to put in is going to be 01, and we're going to read Excel files. So here we're going to name it Reading Excel. Now let's create another file. In this folder, I'm going to put in 02 underscore. Let's clean the data. Cleaning data. So in this file, we're going to clean up data. Let's move on and create more files. Here, put in 03. And for the next one, we're going to do is we're going to make invoices. Well, I've shown that in my previous class, so go check out that video again if you did skip out a couple of parts. I'm going to put in invoices or invoice automation. Let's create 2 more. Another folder, 04 underscore, and here we're going to generate reports. Let's put in reports generation. Now for the last one, what we can show is we can use email automation. I've clearly shown this part on my previous class, so it will be very easy if you have done that. Now, we're going to put each and every one of them in specific folders, such as if we want to read the Excel, I have prepared the sample invoice data, which is basically this one. If you open this up, you'll basically see that this is the exact invoice that we want to use. So we have the customer, we have the amount, and we have the status. Well, if you don't have it, you can obviously create it on your own. And I'm not like making it like very big so that it is going to be very hard for you to create on your own too. But I'm going to be attaching all of these files inside of my resource folder. So you will also be able to use them by just downloading all of these files. So we're going to take this and we're going to take it inside of Reading Excel. For cleaning the data, I have prepared the messy transaction, which is basically this file, which is Excel over here. Okay, so you can see we have a messy data set, which has a missing value in between. So we're going to fill that up. So we're going to take this and we're going to click or keep it on cleaning data. For the next one, we are going to automate our invoices. To automate our invoices, we're going to use the customer data, which is over here. And it also contains a very small amount of data, which has the customer data over here. So let's take this customer data and we're going to basically just take this inside of our invoices automation. Okay. Now for the last one, we're just going to take it inside of the reports generation, because this file is going to contain the exact amount which is going to be used for our monthly summary. So that is it. Now we're going to open up PyCharm, and you will see that every one of those directories has been created just like this. Now, as we have created all of these files, we also want to create a README MD file. Well, you can use that if you want to, but if you don't want to, it is also totally fine. Now, the first thing, or the first part of this class, is reading the Excel file. The objective is to load and view accounting data using Pandas. Well, if you still do not know anything about Pandas, I would still suggest you go check out my previous videos. I have explained it properly. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this folder, right click on new. I'm going to create a Python file. Here, I'm going to name it read Excel py. So as we have the read underscore Excel py, first off, we're going to need Pandas. Go off on terminal, type in pip install Pandas. Now let's wait for a bit. Now you can see, and if like in my previous class, I already downloaded it, so it should also work properly. If I type in, let's say, import Pandas, it should work. But if it doesn't, then make sure to just install it again on your device, and then it will work properly. And obviously wait for it to end totally, and then the terminal allows you to text or type in again, and that is going to mean that the whole process has been done. But if you try to put it in before the whole process is done, it is not going to work. Now, inside this file, we have our date, the invoice number, the customer amount, and the status. So we're going to find out and read the Excel file accordingly. First off, type in import Pandas as PD. This is how you want to type in. Now you can see that it is still not detected. If it is not detected, it is totally fine. Remove it again. Import Pandas as PD. Now, another thing that you can see that we have typed in Pandas over here, and it should work. If I just copy this, paste it over here, and hit on enter, it's going to install. First off, it's going to uninstall the previous pip, and it's going to install the newer one. So we're going to wait until Pandas has been installed and type in pip and type in install Pandas back again. Now we're going to wait for a bit. If it shows me that requirement is already satisfied, then it is going to update these skeletons and it's going to index all of the data. And after that, it will be done. There we go. Now it is detected as PD. Here, when you are reading any, let's say, Excel file, it is basically a data frame, right? So you have to convert that into a data frame by typing in df equal pd dot read underscore. Now you can see this is an Excel file. So we're going to select on read Excel. If you are working with CSV files, then put in read CSV. Now you have to put in the exact name, which is basically sample, and type in underscore sample invoice underscore data. And you have to put in the format XLSX. That is exactly it. Now, after that, you also have to print it out. Print, open up the parentheses, you have to print the data frame, and I want the head. When you type in head, it prints out the first 5 lines, but it only contains 2 lines, so it should be, perfect. So here, we're going to save up this file, and then we want to run it accordingly. So right click over here and type in or click on run read Excel. If it shows you off as an error, then there is a bit of problem. You can see sample, we have invoice underscore data. Now we're going to check it out if it is working or not. If it isn't, then we're going to change it out accordingly. Okay. So first things first, we can also put in something like ... and / like this, and it will work. But if it is still not working, then we have to make sure to install Excel. Okay. Here I'm going to put in sample underscore invoice data.excelSX. Okay, you want to save up this file first. Now, if it shows you off as an error, now there are a couple of things you have to keep in mind. When you are using the community edition, it doesn't have all of the needed modules to run everything. So we're going to try installing another thing. Let's say here, I'm going to run or install OpenPyXL. So type in pip install OpenPyXL. Hit on enter, and we're going to wait for a bit until the whole thing has been done. After the whole thing has been done, now let's try running the whole thing again. Now, when you run this, you will see that the data is going to be presented inside of the terminal. That means it is also going to require OpenPyXL to run all of these things. Now, after you hit on enter or when you run this, you can see we have the whole data set and whatever we had inside of the Excel file inside of PyCharm. So you can see how simple it is to load and view accounting data using Pandas and OpenPyXL. Even if you put in more, let's say, data over there in the Excel folder, it is still going to be presented inside of the terminal. You just have to refresh it and run this back again, and it is going to present anything that is inside of the Excel file. So now you know how to read Excel files. So we're going to close this off. Now let's move on to the next one, where we are going to clean the data set. Now, the objective of cleaning the data is removing missing values and correcting formats and removing duplicates. First off, we're going to do the same thing. First off, if you've seen up till now, you can see that inside of this file, we had one of a missing value. So here, let's create a Python file. I'm going to put in clean data.py. First off, I'm going to import Pandas as PD. After that, we're going to create the data frame. Let's say pd.readExcel. And here I'm going to put in the messy underscore transaction underscore. I'm going to put in messy transactions.xlsx. After that, we're going to drop the values that has missing values. df drop in a, I'm going to put in place equal true. After that, now we're going to put in the type of data that we want. We want to validate the amount section. It is going to be equal to df here, put in amount. Now we're going to replace the open value, or let's say the open data here inside these parentheses. We're going to put in single quotation again, and then secondary bracket again. Inside the secondary bracket, we're going to put in a backward slash and then a $sign and then put in comma directly inside. After that, you will see the quotation will close. After that, we're going to create another quotation, which is going to be empty. And we're going to have a bit of space like after the comma. After that, we're going to type in regex equal true. I'm going to put in dot as type. Now we're also going to validate float values. Now you can check out the data by typing in dtype. But as we already have the data and it can also contain decimals, then it's just easier and better to put in the float value. The next thing is to drop the duplicate values. So data frame dot drop underscore duplicates in place equal true. df dot to Excel double quotation. I'm going to name it as cleaned transaction dot xlsx. Okay, so we are going to change that and we're going to save it in the name of cleaned transaction file. And another thing that we want to do is we want to turn off indexing. Index equal false. So this is it for this part. Now, if you try running this, you might see an error like this. But you can see when we run this, this is the error that opens up. But one thing you can see over here, we have the cleaned transaction. So we can try opening this up in Explorer. So we have the cleaned transaction. Let's open this up and let's check if it worked or not. Let's wait. And there we go. You can see it has removed everything and also the duplicates. But if you don't want to face this error, one thing that you can try doing over here is just put in an R at the beginning. Okay? So when you put in R, it works as a raw string because Python treats slash as an escape character. An example, /n, /t, etc. But when you put in $, it is not recognized and it cannot recognize the escape sequence. So Python raises a syntax warning just like this. So if you put in R just like this, it uses the raw string. And if you run this, there we go. It has finished with the exit code. And there is no specific error. Now let's try opening up that folder again. We have the messy transaction over here. You can see we have this empty space and like another like duplicate value. But in the cleaned transaction, we can see it only contains 1. So this is how you'll be able to automate specific files and even Excel files on your PC. Now, as we are done and we have shown you about cleaning the data, the next thing that we want to do is we want to automate invoices. To automate invoices, first off, let's close this off. And we're going to open up tree or folder 3. Now, first off, create a Python file. Here, I'm going to type in generate. I'm going to type in invoices. The first thing that you want to do is open up your terminal and you have to install docx_tpl. Type in pip install docx and type in tpl. Hit on enter and wait for a bit until it installs all of the things. Now, when you install docx_tpl, it installs the docs templates. So whatever type of doc file you are using, it will still be able to read it without facing any errors. So make sure to install it properly on your device and then advance with the class. We're going to just skip to the part and you can see it has been done and the indexing is also almost done. We're also going to wait until the indexing has been totally done so we can load up every one of the modules that we need in this class. You also want to make sure Pandas is installed. So the objective of automating invoices is to generate invoices from templates using docx templates. First things first, we have the Excel file, right? Which is customer data. Here, we're going to turn them into a doc file, right? So first thing, I'm going to type in from docx_tpl. Here, I'm going to import docx template. Here, I'm going to import Pandas as PD. Now, before making the data frame, let's first off make a variable for the template. Now, as we have the template, I'm going to press on that. There we go. Template is going to be equal to docx template. And we're going to name it, let's say, invoice_template. Let's cut off one of the underscores. And we're going to save it as the doc file, which is docx. After that, let's make the data frame ed.read, and we're working with Excel. So I want to validate the customer data. Customer data.xlsx. I'm going to put in for index row in df dot iteros. and we're going to keep it empty. Here, I'm going to put in the context equal third bracket. First off, define in the name, colon, define in row, secondary brackets. First off, I want the name. Now, as we're using these type of variables, we're going to put in comma after each line. Now, I want the invoice number. Invoice number. Here, row, secondary brackets, invoice number. After that, we're going to put in the amount. Now, the amount is going to be row, and here, I'm going to put in amount. Now, the third bracket should end after this line. Now, we're going to validate the template render. So here, let's define in template and type in render. Now, what do you want to render from the template? So I want to render the context of the template. So type in context. Now, obviously, now that we have created the doc file, we also want to save up the template. So type in template.save. When you use this function template.save, it is going to save any of the doc files. Here, F invoices / and type in invoice underscore, then put in the third bracket. Here, define in now, secondary bracket, single quotation, invoice number. Let's put in a capital NO. There we go. This is how it should look like. And it should close off right off at the end. Now, before this quotation closes, I'm going to define the format, which is docx. That's all that you need to put inside of this generate invoices py. After this, you just want to right click and run generate invoices. You will see it might show you off as an error right over here. So we're going to check this document part if it is working or not. There we go. Now I also added in the doc file. So let's try running this. And if it shows me off as an error again, then you can see there is no such thing as the path over here and it is false, but we're just basically going to wait for a bit. Now, it might show me off as a couple of errors. If it keeps on doing that, first off, open up the folder where you have it. Now copy this path, Control C, and we want to paste it right over here. Another thing that you want to do, you want to turn all of these into forward slashes. There we go. Now, after that, we're going to name it / and we want to use the invoice template.x. At the next one, I'm going to import OS because sometimes it cannot find it. And if it finds it, I want to make another directory where it is going to contain the invoices. So after the data frame, I'm going to take a bit more space and I want to create output folder if it does not exist. So type in, if not, I'm going to type in os.path.exists. Now I'm going to name this folder as invoices. Now I'm going to define it as colon, and here I'm going to put in os.make directories, double quotation, I'm going to type in invoices. That's it. Now we're going to keep all of these the same, such as name row is name, invoice number row invoice number, and amount is known as amount. Now we have template render as context. Now here we want to define a file name for each and every one of them because there are going to be two. So F double quotation invoices / invoice underscore row. Now this row that you are using should also be inside of a third bracket. So define in the third bracket over here, secondary brackets, let's define the invoice number, single quotation, and I want to close off the secondary and the third bracket right over here. And in the same way, we can keep it as DOCX. Okay? Now, one thing that you can see, we can put the double quotation right over at the end. Now, we had this over here. We can cut this off. Here, I'm going to type in template.save, and I'm going to name it as the file name that it should open up as. Now, I want to print out if it is working. Let's say saved, colon. Now, I want the file name. So here I defined in the file name inside of the quotation. And basically that's all that you want to do inside of this generate invoices PY. So as we have this, right click on this and click on run generate. And there we go. You can see 2 invoices have been created. We can open this up inside of the Explorer. First off, open it up. There we go. We have invoice, customer name, Alice Corp, invoice number, amount due, and thank you at the end. In the same way, for the next one, we have Bob LLC, invoice number 2, amount due 2,300, and thank you at the end. So this is basically how you are going to generate the invoices using Python. Now, the next thing that we're going to learn about is reports generation. Well, reports generation is very simple, and the objective is to create a summarized monthly report. To create a summarized monthly report, first off, let's close this off. Here, let's make a Python file. I'm going to type in generate report. Here, first off, I'm going to import Pandas as PD. Here, I'm going to create the data frame equal pd.readExcel, double quotation. I'm going to define in monthly summary.xlsx. After that, here I'm just going to put in monthly right over here. After the data frame, define in the summary equal df.group by, double quotation, category. After that, secondary brackets, double quotation, amount. And then I want to sum it up with the reset. So here, I'm going to reset the index value so it is not, like jumbled. And then I'm going to make the summary dot to underscore Excel, double quotation, summary underscore report.xlsx. That is the exact file. And then I'm going to make sure to put in a comma before an index equal false. That's it. Okay. Save up this file, right click on this and run generate report. If you generate this, you will see we have the monthly summary. Okay. And that is exactly how we have saved it up as summary report. We can open it up inside of the Explorer. We have the summary report over here. If you open this up, we have the summary expense is 1,500 and sales is 3,000. If we open up the monthly report or the monthly summary, you will see that it is a bit different. There we go. Well, even though if it is not, you can put it up as more data. Let's say if you put in the sales or the amount, you'll be able to change it up and you can also apply in more value to it. Okay. If you, let's say the amount here, I'm going to click on enable editing. I'm just going to make sure to put in another one of this. So I'm just going to put in sales. I'm going to put in, let's say 2,000 over here. We're going to save up this file. And then we want to run this back again. As it is done, now let's check it out again. Explorer. Open this up and you can see now this has turned into 5,000. So now you can see that even if you have a lot of data, it is still going to work and it is going to function properly. So this is exactly how you generate reports using Python. Now, the last thing that we're going to learn about is the sending accounting reports via email using SMTPlib. Well, I've shown that clearly in my previous class. First off, now I'm going to do it a bit different over here in this class, okay? Whenever you are working with email, you have to make sure to install a lot of modules. First off, let's create a file over here. We're going to create a demo file, which is going to contain the sender, the password, and also the receiver. So here, I'm going to name it email config.json. Okay, we have the JSON file, third brackets, sender. I'm going to put in double quotation. Let's say your email @ example.com. In this case, I'm just going to put it like this. Password. And make sure it is also inside of this double quotation. Here, I'm going to put in double quotation. Let's say your password. That's it. Now here, you have to define in your receiver. Let's say it is going to be the client. That's it. That's all that it should be inside of the demo and the JSON config. And then you have to create a Python file where it is going to be, let's say, send email.py. First off, you have to go off in a terminal to type in import, or first off, you have to type in pip install SMTPlib. Hit on enter and wait for a bit. If it does not show you that it doesn't satisfy the requirement, then it is totally fine. Then the next thing is you're going to type in pip install SSL. Then wait for a bit until this one is also done. You can see it is installing the dependencies and this is done. Then you're going to type in pip install, type in email, and that's it. You can also type in email message and you should also try that out. But before that, obviously install email. Type in pip install email message. If it doesn't show you off as it requires anything, then it is totally fine. Okay, you can cut this off and you're just going to basically use the same thing that I've shown you in my previous class, such as first off, like type in import SMTPlib as it is already detected, import SSL, it is also detected, from email dot message import email message and import JSON. And after that, you just want to put in with open, then you have to define the message. Now, first off, let's save this up and I'm going to go off close project. And we have the accounting demo. In this accounting demo, you can see we have used this send email. So in the same way, you want to put everything that we used over here with the context and also the SMTPlib. So if you've seen my previous class, then you are good to go with this class too. Okay? And another thing, you have to put in with open and which file you want to create. So in this case, let's close this one too. Accounting. Here, the changes that you want to bring over here is going to be, let's say, with open. I want to open it up with the email config JSON as F. And you want to define the config equal JSON dot load, open parentheses, and define an F. That's it. Now, in the same way, you have to define the messages. such as I'm just going to paste it up over here that I did in my previous class, just like this. Now, after this, I'm going to show that part for you. Let's say you want to open it up with, open up the parentheses and which one you want to send, like send. So I want to send the summary of the report. Report.xlsx. After that, comma, double quotation RB as F MSG dot add attachment. Here I'm going to put in F dot read, open up the parentheses, and after opening up the parentheses, I'm going to put in the main type. Main type is going to be equal to application. After the application, I'm going to define the subtype. It is going to be equal to, let's say, VND dot open XML format. Okay, this is exactly how you want to put in. And after the format, I'm going to use the Office document. So dash Office, then put in document dot spreadsheet ml dot sheet. After that, you have to define in with a comma and define in the file name. It is going to be equal. So we have this comma right over here. So the file name that we want to use is obviously the summary report. Summary report.xlsx. There we go. That's all that you want to put inside of this line. Now, after this one is done, let's just take it to the end. After the message, we're going to define the context in the same way. Context equal SSL because it is going to create. Put in create. Here, put in the create default context. After the next line, here I'm going to put in with smtplib.smtp.ssl, open parentheses. I'm going to use smtp.gmail.com, and you want to use the port as 465 that I've shown you in my previous class. And you want to define in the context equal context as a server. And then I'm going to put in the server login. Config. Here in the single quotation, after the config secondary brackets, here define in the sender. And after the sender, you have to define in the config again, secondary bracket, single quotation, define in the password that you need to put in. It is already defined in our JSON file and define in server.send underscore message, and it is MSG that is defined. Okay, and that is basically it for this part. Now, one thing you will see if you run this is an error because it cannot find it. So you want to take this summary report and take this inside of this folder, refactor, and then you want to run it, but it will still show me an error because there is no such, emails that belongs to this. Okay, so you want to run this email again, and you will see the same thing opening up and showing off as the same thing over and over again. If you open it up in Explorer, we're going to check we have double access over here. We're going to rename it. There we go. Saved up. Now let's run this. And it will take a bit of time, and this is how it will show up. Because the sender and the password that we have put in is not an actual email, neither a password. So you have to make sure you use your own email and password when you are working with it. And it is also connected to SMTPlib. So that's it for this class, and hope you understood about everything. If you still have any confusion or any question, feel free to ask me anytime, as I'm always there to help you out. So without any further ado, let's move on to our next class of Python accounting automation.